game number 2 coming up, starting off very quickly, flowing with the bans. The Ahri is taken away again, and now the Gragas, Copenhagen Wolves Academy. And again, focus COSQ out. Why not? Duck, I don't know if he'll be too sad about the Zed. He hasn't really gotten much of it anyways in the last, well, it's been quite a few weeks.
Well, give Pyra a gold star, because there's the Hecarim ban out from Copenhagen Wolves Academy. What does that leave available? Maokai is available. Morsu is never going to play Maokai, really, unless he's changed something up massively. So ROCCAT kind of feel like that's going to go through the bans, or through the picks a little bit later.
Yeah, a number of junglers banned out as well as mid laners, so ROCCAT decide to give Jankos the Rek'Sai. We'll see what Copenhagen Wolves Academy answer with. A little touch on Jankos with that Rek'Sai. He's only played it a few times over the course of the spring split. Hasn't really had any success on it, though.
And I like this Rek'Sai pickup here. As I said, in 8 games for Morsu, or sorry, 8 unique champions for Morsu in that top lane role, never once in the regular Challenger Series split did he play Maokai. And Maokai being pretty much the unanimous safe top laner, not being in your arsenal, is going to let it go to ROCCAT. Do they want to put overpower back on Maokai? It hasn't been picked up by the Wolves yet.
Yeah, it's just so strange to see it being deprioritized.
Yep.
I mean, you look at a guy like Morsu. This is a dude that's played Fiora twice in the Challenger Series. This is a guy that's played top Yasuo, Vladimir, Wukong, and it just... He wants to carry.
Yep.
Or he wants to split, but that didn't get the chance last time on Jax.
Didn't get the chance. The funny thing is, trees can carry if you look at Ents. They can carry a lot of things.
Yeah, including hobbits.
Only small people, yeah, indeed. But at this point, Lucian and Thresh getting locked in, that's a very, you know, well, it's the same bot lane that they had from the last game. Didn't work out too well for Visility. He fell very far behind. And speaking of more of the same, ROCCAT have locked in 2 very similar, the same champions from last game.
Yes, and of course, this Lulu, even though Nukeduck had such a successful play on it, it still technically is that flex pick for Vander.
Yes.
We'll see what the Wolves Academy answer with, but so far, they're not revealing much. Putting in the Rek'Sai, we've seen how powerful and tanky you can still be with the Cinderhulk enchant. I feel like ROCCAT, they're sticking to the formula. We'll see if it nets them another win.
Yeah, we know Overpow should have Lulu in his top lane. Didn't actually really play it, though, in the regular season, which is a little surprising for a mid laner going up into the top lane. But let's see if they put it on Vander or keep it on
Vander never played it either, actually, now that we bring that up.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one. So one team that it's not really so much of a flex for, and not really flexing over on the side of Wolves Academy. Orianna getting locked in for COSQ. He played it once. It was a loss in the regular season. Now with Sejuani, though, that combination, heavy engage, heavy ultimate synergy, taking that away, potentially away from ROCCAT. We didn't see it out of them. We've already got the Rek'Sai locked in for ROCCAT this game, so no look for Sejuani from them.
Yeah, the Copenhagen Wolves Academy, so they were able to snap the Sejuani pickup. I feel like combining it with the Orianna definitely gives them a lot of scary combo presence, something that ROCCAT can't just walk up and start picking people off, because you have to respect that Glacial Prison. No matter what stage of the game it's at, no matter how far ahead you are, you have to respect that, and the Shockwave.
So, what else is available? Annie's still up for Vander should they look to choose it. It worked well for them in the last game with the Urgot, and I'm expecting that Maokai to get locked in as well.
Yeah, we'll see if Overpow heard your statement about trees carrying. See if he wants to do that one. I wouldn't be too surprised. It's definitely been in his repertoire quite a lot. It should work well with this bruiser-centric style that ROCCAT seem to enjoy playing so far this series, and they do take both that and the Annie.
What do they leave for Morsu, though? Because he's got the counter pick here for top lane. Does he go for something that is going to just dominate a Maokai in lane? Maokai is fairly safe, but when it comes to lane matchups, he can get bullied out just a little bit. It depends on what Morsu wants here. We know he's played Fizz, Fiora, Yasuo, Vladimir, Wukong. Now all of these champions are available for him. I wonder whether he'll opt for something like a Now. We saw that out of SKT versus CJ Entus just yesterday. And while the Now was impressive, it was eventually the Maokai that kind of just had a more consistent late game. So I wonder what Morsu really wants from this situation.
I feel like it's really hard to lock down a player like Morsu that just loves a lot of different carry styles. The Fizz would make a lot of sense. It's going to be a little slippery, hard for ROCCAT to lock down, but they're just playing with the idea of it, toying with it for a moment as the timer ticks down. Copenhagen Wolves Academy, if they do take this, they'll have a lot of damage. They go for it.
Yeah, I like the Fizz on Morsu in the sense that it's a champion he's played a lot into Maokai. You can get a lot of dominance fairly early on. The problem is, again, Copenhagen Wolves Academy, if if they start giving kills over to ROCCAT, ROCCAT are going to get very tanky. Wolves Academy are going to rely on ultimates in order to keep themselves alive. Depends on what Morsu is going to do, because he can't take an Ignite here. I doubt he's going to look to go Smite on Fizz. It has been seen maybe once, but then you sacrifice the Flash.
We saw it on Kickus.
Yeah?
That was in the jungle, admittedly.
Yeah, that was in the jungle. That's a slightly different matter. And
I think it definitely makes a little bit more sense to maybe not take the Smite, but I am a little questioned about the Ignite. You'd feel like it helps him trade a lot better. But there are 2 Ignites on the side already of Copenhagen.
I mean,
Academy.
Fizz trades fairly well as it is anyway, but ROCCAT have a fairly scary comp when it comes to engaging on you. Again, it's similar to the first game. Maokai, Rek'Sai, Urgot, Annie, and Lulu's going to keep somebody alive as well, so I would not want to be Copenhagen Wolves Academy if you get caught out down in numbers.
Yeah, but at the same token, don't want to be ROCCAT if they get caught out on either Sejuani or Orianna ultimate. Could be bad on the bad side of that one. Now, why don't you guys tell us if you think the Copenhagen Wolves Academy can even the score out? You know what to do. Tweet us at LOL Esports, ROC win or CWA win. Our hashtags. We're loading up onto the Rift. This is game number 2. ROCCAT still looking to keep themselves in the LCS for the summer split. Copenhagen Wolves Academy looking to break in. Let's see what happens.
So this has been the plan for the Wolves all along. It didn't work out in game 1 when it comes to locking ROCCAT on to that blue side for 5 games. Will it work out in game 2? They've got the counter pick in the top lane. We do have a very brief pause. They've got the counter pick or counter if Morsu really wants that in that top lane. So Morsu should have a favorable lane for himself. But honestly, it's the bottom lane that I'm really looking towards for this series. The Lucian and the Thresh didn't really work out for them last game. No second completed item by like 32 minutes was not a good sign for Visility. And if that happens again, then Wolves Academy could find themselves 1 game away from not being in the LCS for the summer split.
Yeah, very true, but it was a very specific chain of events that led to Visility and Hybrid being so far behind in that lane. They really were bullying quite well onto Woolite and Vander to begin with, but there was a lot of jungle presence. Jankos now on this Rek'Sai. I think he could definitely provide a lot quicker jungle support than last game, and I feel like with that Rek'Sai, even before level 6, even before you get the extreme mobility that's offered by the Void Rush, you still have to respect that if you're Visility and Hybrid, and if they play much more passive game, well, they kind of give up that lane bullying pressure that they can have with those 2 champions.
Yeah, can have.
That's always it's always an option. It's never, or it's not 100% guaranteed though.
I wonder though whether we'll see ROCCAT just go, okay, you want a Fizz? We'll put you in a lane swap. We'll just put you in a situation that we know Wolves Academy are not particularly good at. The funny things happen in Challenger when the former Lowland Lions squad, now Copenhagen Wolves Academy lane swap. We had 3-minute 5-man tower pushes in our off-broadcast games. We had attempted tower pushes that failed for the Wolves Academy. Kyrie would either go huge or go home, and they've not had the most consistent tower pushing game when it comes to 2v1s.
No, that's absolutely true. And for ROCCAT, I mean, you can talk about consistency with this team too, because if there's one thing that they have been consistent in, it's not being able to close the later games out. But if they do take it early, they can definitely be a deciding factor. And speaking of ROCCAT, by the way, current pause right now due to a bit of an audio issue with Nuke Duck. The refs are talking it over with them as we get through this pause. But since nothing's really happened on the map, we're only 25 seconds into the game right now. Let's talk a little bit more about if they do go standard lanes, which it looks to be the case unless we see any fancy juke arounds. I don't think ROCCAT are too worried about this. How do you think this bottom lane matchup will go now that there's a Rek'Sai on their side to help counter pressure?
Well, I mean, Jankos is the former First Blood master when it comes to things. King, master, queen. Queen of the Zersai in this game. So, you know, that is Jankos' old moniker. Didn't really see it yet in the 2015 season. So now he's on an early game jungler. He's got the opportunity to get down there. The problem is it is going to be tricky ganking a Thresh lane. Lantern going to be available, flashes, all of that. If they can get summoners early on, they may very well be able to catch somebody in the bottom lane. I wouldn't rely on that, though. And
well, they were focusing a lot of dive pressure down there.
Yes.
I mean, that was a big thing. It did burn them early on, but Copenhagen Wolves Academy, they do focus a lot of their attention on the top side. I'm curious if they do this again with Morsu. Another split pushing champion on this Fizz, but it's not an eggs all in one basket kind of champion like Jax is.
No, it isn't. And it's actually a champion that is going to get into the game a little bit earlier than a Jax would as well. You don't... while Fizz will benefit very well from a second item spike, he still has dueling potential earlier into the game than Jax. You can still, especially against a Maokai, put yourself there and look to take him down fairly early on. Again, it just depends on jungle pressure into Morsu's lane, whether he can get caught out early, because you take a look down the list for Copenhagen Wolves Academy. Orianna is somewhat difficult to gank early on. If you blow her flash early, then it becomes a lot safer. Thresh, Lucian, we already talked about it. Lanterns are pretty good. So Morsu has to recognize that he is going to be potentially a glaring weakness against a Maokai and a Rek'Sai, who both have crowd control, both have a fair amount of at least damage in a lane early on. Morsu has to respect that.
Yeah, and potential tankiness, too. I think Copenhagen Wolves Academy have learned the lesson that they just can't simply count on catching anyone out. Least of all, this Urgot that Woolite has been packing, because he was just able to blow people up from the front lines. And there is so much way to support not only him, but the rest of this ROCCAT team. Again, Vander will naturally be a little bit squishy, but that's a double-edged sword. If you check into an Annie, you may get a face full of Tibbers. I feel like they're definitely going to have to bank on team fighting a little bit more effectively. And they've got the Sejuani to deliver the ball. They've got a big ultimate on that one. They have Vizildi, if he can dance around in the back and make these fights happen. I think the big difference this time around is Morsu will be a lot slipperier than the Jax ever could be. And he can also be a ball delivery system, too.
He can be. We'll see how that plays out. But one thing is for certain, Copenhagen Wolves Academy do have a fairly good team fight when it comes to a wombo combo kind of situation. And if Wolves Academy can take a couple of fights earlier on in the game, they're going to snowball fairly heavily with a couple of kills under their belt.
Yeah, that is definitely the possibility with that composition. One thing we haven't really talked about as much, though, is the last time we saw the Wolves Academy, it was a very, very quick series where they lost to Origin 0-3. And a lot of people said, oh, maybe land jitters. They just haven't really played on the big stage before. This is their second time now. They're down one game. They definitely had some, I would say, questionable decision-making in a few of those plays. Do you chalk this up again to just not being used to this big stage? Where do you cut that line off?
Well, I mean, one game, is it enough? One best of 5, is it enough to make your second best of 5 even better?
Yeah. Well, you got to be ready.
Only
time
will
tell.
Only time will tell.
I suppose we'll see. Back into this one now. Welcome once again to Summoner's Rift. Ladies and gentlemen, just joining us now, catching up on this one. Copenhagen Wolves Academy, after that first loss, still trying to get themselves into the LCS for the summer split. We will have standard lanes, it looks like, to start this one off. No shenanigans from these two teams. It's all standard.
It is, so far. We'll see how things end up going. There is still the potential for things to change around. Morsu is getting chased by it. It's,
This is the happiest little explosive bit of tree I've ever seen.
It is. I don't know what other happy.
That's not the point.
Tree you see.
Very happy.
It is. It's just happy to be here.
Yeah. Look, there he goes again. Look at that. Oh,
2 for 2.
Yeah.
But you raised a good point though. Talking about Copenhagen Wolves Academy when it comes to their experience on the stage. I spoke to them before Origin and said, how many times have you played on the stage? And they're like, we've played at a couple of events. They've all played together at a lot of Dutch events just on a national level, but this is a whole different ball game. First they took on Origin, who have massive amounts of stage experience. Now you've got to take on a team like ROCCAT, who, for the most part, all of these players have been on this stage every single week in 2 games for the best part of 2 years.
Yeah, and that's really something that's kind of daunting to try and face down, saying, hey, this is the old hand, this is the old guard. We're going to do the best we can to try and face them, match them pound for pound. But at new kids on the block, it's always a little bit difficult. And this team, newly minted as the Copenhagen Wolves Academy, they went from Lions to Wolves. And it's still a very, very exciting prospect, but you got to think it can get in your head very easily if you're not prepared for it.
You can. There is a menagerie in this game. Lions, wolves, cats.
Yeah, the ROCCAT, if you will.
Yeah.
And we did have a lane swap, by the way.
Yes.
It's a double lane swap, so it's the same lane, just turn them upside down. See what happens here.
And you feel like Wolves Academy really wanted this situation. You don't want Morsu in a 1v2 situation. So now Morsu should be able to get a lot of pressure. But look at Hybrid already zoning away Vander. This time, once again, actually, they get the level 2 early. Woolite and Vander. Hook not quite going to connect, but the level 2 is there. And now ROCCAT finally are going to get themselves up and do off that wave.
Yeah, and this is exactly how the Copenhagen Wolves Academy wanted to start the last games, how they were able to. They just have to be careful not to get pressured in from the jungle of Jankos. Ward down in the river right now.
That's a very timely ward here, though. As you can see, Jankos on the top side. Visility and Hybrid were pushing. Jankos, I believe they read that that ward went down, so he's going to head, get the crab, and go into the jungle. But bottom lane, Sejuani is making the way in against Maokai. They actually just got the flash.
It looks like that will be the end of that one, but a good way to start things off. Move down to the bottom, pressure over Pal, but Jankos is coming around the backside. He's going to be tunneling in. Hybrid stunned up, and it looks like Vasili's going to have to leave him for dead. Jankos gets pulled back in, flays, but that's going to be first blood. However, it's picked up by Vander.
It is. It's, I mean, normally not the best of things, but at this point, a kill in that lane is going to pretty much reverse the pressure here from Hybrid and Visility. Vander actually checks into him and will take a lot of damage for his troubles, but early ganks from junglers. Jankos gets himself an assist on that first blood, whereas Kyrie gets himself a flash on Overpower. Now that does make Overpower's lane against Fizz a fair amount more difficult, but take a look at that. Nukeduck being given the blue buff early on here should allow him to at least be even safer in this lane against COSQ. Orianna not with the most amount of kill pressure, but Nukeduck can now shove in and create a lot more pressure on the map for Jankos to get himself into other lanes.
Yeah, compared to last game, COSQ was pressuring quite a lot on that LeBlanc. Now Nukeduck will have, it should have in theory a much easier laning phase, but he's got this blue buff now, and he in theory could trade out quite effectively if he decides to.
Ooh, Overpower down in this bottom lane is playing fairly riskily. He shoved the wave into Fizz, and Morsu is basically just sitting just in front of his turret with the wave, and that opens up the possibility for Kyrie to look for another gank down there, and no flash on Maokai would be a tricky one, but Nukeduck is shoved up and is inviting in the middle lane.
Yeah, a really big CS differential if you compare the two top laners hanging out in the bottom. Morsu just absolutely nearly doubling the CS of Overpower, and this is a hard life for a tree, especially when Sejuani's got you in his sights. You take a look, though, at the 80 carry difference. That Urgot has just been absolutely massive, even though the level 1 advantage was there. Woolite, once again, he's done this. He's turned the tables on to this Copenhagen Wolves Academy bot side.
Woolite even opting for a flask here, just wants more sustain in this lane. He is ahead. We talked about how Visility in the last game fell so far behind that he never had the damage. Woolite just going to sustain himself up here, rather than opting for a longsword start, which gives him extra damage. So that really does affect Woolite and Vander's ability to trade in this lane, but it also allows them to sit there and just passively farm up, which they're doing very well right now. 40 CS to 25.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's going to be difficult if Visility doesn't get his farm caught up to be effective on this Lucian. They're going to bring some jungle pressure in the form of Kyrie down there, or up there, I should say. But Jankos, he's the one who's down on the bottom side. Over the wall, sends a Praise Seeker Morsu's way, and that's about it.
Oh, mid lane, though. Vander, three-man gang.
That's a roam. COSQ might have been looking like 3 for just a second. They got the flash all the same out of COSQ, and that will mean Vander is happy with that one. After Woolite had already backed this, we'll give a slight opening for Visility. Hybrid grab some free farm for themselves. Could push in if they wanted to. It looks like it will just be Visility for now, and then he backs to base. See what he does decide to get spent with that gold.
Nukeduck baited me in. He was set in a really weird position. I was like, that's a Lulu coming into mid lane. Oh, wait. It's mid anyway. But
yeah.
At this point, that was an ambitious gank in the bottom lane from Jankos onto Morsu, who has his flash, has Playful Trickster available. He's going to get away here, even if Overpower lands the W here. It's not too much that they could have done in that little attempt bottom side. And the question is, how far ahead do this bottom lane that are now top get for ROCCAT before Wolves Academy say, okay, we're just going to swap this around and try and get some dragon control? Yeah,
that really is the question. ROCCAT being able to push in the waves now in the bottom and in the top gives them a lot of pressure to be able to try and, let's ward up just a little bit, maybe make sure we can control it. They controlled the dragons extremely well last time around, of course. We'll see what they can do here. Visility taking some serious poke from Woolite. Those Acid Hunters landing on after the E. Can't miss him at that point. Woolite just being the bully that he needs to be in. Visility on this Lucian. They haven't really been able to do much early game. Let's see what happens here, though, as COSQ runs straight into Jankos, or is it Jankos running straight into him? Kyrie, though, they're knocked up. Wild Growth is there. COSQ's burning down. Jankos just picks him up. Wild Growth keeping him nice and big as he polishes off some Razor Beaks to go with it.
Koskyu didn't even get a good chance to use his ultimate in that situation. He couldn't have used it for damage. I mean, that was out of the question, but maybe just the crowd control. I don't know. It would depend on what Koskyu wanted from that situation. He had no flash anyway. One thing I want to kind of look at is the itemization up in the top side. Woolite couldn't quite afford his mana mune, so he's not going to stack up very quickly, but Jankos has been hooked in. Facility over the wall.
Yeah, he goes over the wall looking for Jankos. In comes Kyrie. Do they have enough damage to polish him off, though? Yeah, Woolite and Vander there for the defense. The red Brambleback just to join the fight as well. Nuke Duck was hanging around the side. And this is just it. These are situations that Copenhagen Wolves should be able to turn to their advantage, but they just have not been able to. As unknowingly Hybrid's hook whizzes a little bit far out of Nuke Duck's range. Overpower really low as Morsu dives in on him. He's able to make the outplay, but across the map, ROCCAT have just been playing better. Despite that, what just happened?
Jankos has focused a lot on the top lane ever since that attempt bottom side. And what it has done, now that Jankos showed himself, was give Morsu the complete freedom in that lane. To just say, okay, this is the 1v1 situation I want. This is where I know I can get ahead, and it's reflected in the CS as well as that kill. 71 CS to 48 after not even backing yet from Morsu. So we'll see what he does. Look to pick up. Going to be going towards that Trinity Force, I expect. And yet there's the Phage, along with a set of boots for himself as well.
Not to go fast, Stress.
Gotta go fast.
Definitely help him hop, skip, and jump away.
Well, this time he's going to be hop, skipping, and jumping in and trying to kill.
Been very, very aggressive. The style that Morsu does like to play. It definitely has netted him some results here. I mean, you've got the one kill. You've got a serious CS advantage. The problem is the rest of your team has not really held up to par in the same way. Yes, the farm is a little bit more even with Woolite. Facility has been able to get that way. But again, they've been getting these catches that in another team should have been able to turn into a kill, but Copenhagen Wolves Academy, they've just let it slip through their fingers a couple times here, and this is troubling. If you're a team that wants to make it into the LCS, you have to start by properly punishing the mistakes of your opponents. You do.
One area that Wolves Academy may be able to punish as this game gets later is Jankos opting for the Warrior chart. It's a stylistic difference to what Cairo went for in the last game. It's going to make Rek'Sai a little bit squishier, but don't count out the fact that a Maokai on Overpower plus an Urgot plus a Lulu should be enough that Jankos can afford to build this damage. But it is an area where Wolves Academy, with maybe a fed Fizz, could look to blow people up pretty quickly in this game. Just depends whether Fizz can avoid all the crowd control using that playful trickster.
We will have to see indeed. Kyrie pops down the ward, Rose back into his own jungle. You see ROCCAT just trying to establish some vision control on the Dragon side of the map. Maybe they look for a dive here as Vander and Jankos go a-roaming, but they come right back now. Woolite pushing them back quite well on his own for the time being. We'll see where ROCCAT decides to put their pressure for now. Could just start this two-man Dragon. It'd be very, very sneaky of them, but there's a ward they're standing on, so not so safe.
Woolite now down in this bottom lane on his own for a second, while Vander is not quite there. He's hanging out in the bush, but top lane, looks like Nuke Duck is going to find Cairo. Knew he was there. So
don't go into the tall grass. There may be giant poros.
There may be, but I don't know. If there's only one of them, can you catch them all?
I suppose if you catch one, you catch them all. But the goal is not getting caught if you're Copenhagen Wolves Academy, and now Hybrid does just that. He flays back too as the Dragon was helping out with the damage, but Woolite with Vander and Jankos are here. They decided not to start this one off as the Orianna roams down. Vasily pops his culling. Vander absorbs a large chunk of it, and now it's Copenhagen Wolves Academy that are looking to start off this Dragon, but it is still a bit unsafe. Jankos a little bit low on the health, decides to start his back, and then cancels it. He's got Void Rush, but he's got no tunnels that are that close to the backside, and this looks like Copenhagen Wolves Academy will be picking up their first Dragon of the game. Yes, it does.
It does. Wolves pick up the first Dragon of the game total, and one big thing that happened during that for the Wolves was Morsu pushed into Overpower in the top lane. I caught it just on the minimap. Actually went towards the tower as well, just making sure that Overpower could never teleport. There was no real safe time for Overpower to teleport, regardless of the fact there are 4 wards behind or in front of that Dragon Pit for ROCCAT. But Kyrie now in the bottom lane. Woolite, is he about to overextend slightly towards the rest of Wolves Academy? He's on the tipping point. Kyrie doesn't want to pull the trigger, though, with that ultimate. Oh, there he goes!
Oh, hyperconnect position reverser, but all of a sudden, there is a giant Poro Rider there, ignoring Vander as Hybrid tries to tank up the damage. They're able to take him down, but Woolite going so low, finally polished off its facility, getting a kill. But in the end, they trade 1 for 1. However, support for AD carry, and they get the teleport out of Overpower.
The teleport's going to be one of the big factors here because Morsu now has a lane to himself in the top lane, and we know he likes to split push. He could get some serious damage down onto that turret, and there's not a lot that ROCCAT can answer with on the bottom side of the map. No dragon available as Wolves Academy did just take that down, so Morsu now has a good few minutes that his teleport is in Wolves Academy's advantage right now. ROCCAT are going to have to deal with that.
Yeah, he has to send himself up to deal with that, pushing the waves back. But Morsu's still happy to just pick up this yummy farm, all uncontested for the time being. Overpower will have to take the long route back, or rather, we might see the return of the ROCCAT lane swap.
Yeah, and ROCCAT right here is saying, okay, Morsu, we don't really want to overpower in the lane against you, so we'll just put you 2v1. And then we'll just keep overpowering the bottom lane. That's all we need to do right now.
But look at this farm differential. Also, you've got 13.5 minutes into this game. Obviously, Overpower should be going for that Righteous Glory, but he's sat on the Catalyst for quite a while, hasn't been able to finish off an item. He's been a little bit starved for farm. You also haven't seen Morsu go back until, well, he still hasn't gone back, but now there's 3 members of ROCCAT pressuring this top side, and I don't think he's going to be able to hold him off by himself.
And this is pretty smart by ROCCAT to kind of highlight Morsu while he's ahead as well, because realistically, Morsu has to do more to get himself in this game than Overpower does. Overpower's ult is always going to do the same thing. He can afford to be a little bit behind on CS. He can't afford to be crushed and not have items at all. But Morsu has to get turrets. He has to farm. He has to be able to 1v1 people down for the Fizz pick to work out. Now, that isn't what Copenhagen Wolves' strategy is relying on completely, because they will have the Sejuani and the Orianna ultimates. They will have a Lucian as well that will end up getting damage in this game. He's building towards that Infinity Edge, so it's not quite as critical as with the Jax, but honestly, Fizz does need a couple of kills under his belt. Time will not just be enough.
Yeah, he's got his way on to 1, but we'll see if he gets any more after that. Meanwhile, ROCCAT, they do not want to give any breathing room to the Copenhagen Wolves to start pushing up on the mid side. Meanwhile, they'll have Jankos taking his trip quickly to the bottom. Visibility, twisted advance onto him from Overpow, and in a 1v2 situation, the Lucian just gets popped. Nukeduck now able to get away from the 2 members of Copenhagen Wolves for the cost of his ultimate. There will be 3 members now pushing in the mid. Let's see if they can grab themselves a quick turret in exchange for that pickup on Facility.
Yeah, we'll see, because Jankos did just use his ultimate and teleport not available for Overpower, so there's no real way of reacting quickly.
Vander's here, though, and he's got a stun up, so they don't want to get caught and potentially chunk down instead.
Yes.
They'll settle for a little bit more damage on the turret. Still, ROCCAT, they were able to get a timely pick here.
They were able to get a timely pick, but with Woolite in the top lane, there's no real way of ROCCAT picking a fight there. They just had to pressure that turret, or pressure Copenhagen Wolves Academy from taking that turret. Now Morsu's down in that bottom lane, going to try and chase Overpow. I expect Morsu to do that this entire game. Is where's Overpow? Is he in a lane on his own? That's the lane I'm going to go and sit in. And Morsu, however, cannot get baited in by that. He can't always try and kill Maokai, because there will be situations where Jankos has a flank here from an ultimate or is just around in the area, and a 2v1 is fairly difficult for Morsu to actually take.
However, he may be able to get out of it.
Yes.
Never underestimate a playful trickster. That is for certain, but for now, he's roaming with Hybrid down. They will be able to take out the pink ward. Remember, it's a minute and a half until this next dragon comes up. Copenhagen Wolves Academy, they got the exact timer now. Overpow, he's going to get chummed. The water's on as they do land the Glacial Prison. Jankos is here for the defense. However, it's still a 2v3 right now. Overpow's going down. It's Hybrid that picks up the kill. Nukeduck on the right. There's the knock-up after the flash, and Nukeduck, they're going to even the odds here. Hybrid trying to stay alive, but he'll go down. That's a double kill over to Nukeduck. Kyrie, can he get away? He dashes Arctic Assault. How about an Arctic Retreat? In comes the Orianna, but I don't know what Kozq can do in a 1v2. Well, he's going to be joined by Kyrie. Maybe there's the Shockwave, but it wasn't nearly enough damage. He might be forced to flash here. Yes, he is.
Got to flash out at this point, and again, Wolves Academy know that they've got to get stuff onto Morsu. They have to just do something. It's such an enticing opportunity to dive a Maokai. You can put damage down on him, but he is going to crowd control you under a tower with his ult running, and it's going to take a long time, at which point the rest of ROCCAT are able to react. And actually, Kyrie getting his recall stopped there is a fairly big factor.
Yeah, that's going to buy a little bit more time for ROCCAT to try and set up vision control on this dragon. It's less than half a minute away. Overpow's teleport is going to come up even sooner than that, so they will be able to go all in on this dragon and grab their first if Copenhagen Wolves Academy cannot push them back. Crab control should go over to them, or maybe not.
They've got to back away.
They back away. They're respecting this damage from ROCCAT. They're letting their ward get cleared out too. Well, not without a hook, but still. Oh, he's gonna follow Hybrid in. Jankos, he wants to fight to start this one off now. Visibility not quite there, and the Sejuani not quite available with the ult. Hybrid just gets taken down, popped by Overpow. ROCCAT take that one all the way to the bank, and Dragon's now live in a 5v4.
Hybrid saw that Overpow was in the middle lane. They should have assumed that somebody else from ROCCAT was there. And you go on a hook, and you didn't follow it all the way in, but the problem is you just set yourself up for that situation. Jankos 1-0-5, still yet to die in this best of 5 series. He's having a really good series out of the jungle.
And he's going to add the title of Dragon Slayer to all those accomplishments as well. Picking that one up solo in just a moment. There it goes. Morsu now. There's his playful trickster to back away from Overpow, but even have to spend that teleport to get back up and defend the top side. So Copenhagen Wolves Academy really don't get much out of this. They try to defend this mid. In comes Kairi, but the Glacial Prison's dodged.
That looks like one of my Glacial Prisons when when I'm playing Sejuani. It's when you ult from that far away, it's nowhere near as good as it used to be. Remember, Sejuani got changed. It's now like a 30% slow rather than what was about a 90% slow on the whiffed ultimates that just kind of tag people. You've got to make sure those ultimates hit. It's one of the only things that Sejuani has to think about when, or you have to think about when playing Sejuani is my ult hitting? Overpow's going in.
Well, there's no ult to be hitting right there, but Overpow's got his on. Visibility's gonna get taken down. Overpow's going big. That's a 3-man shockwave, but they're not interested in following up. Cosq gets bumped up a couple of times. Kairi, though, is gonna be the one that's taken down. Credit goes over to Woolite. 2-1-2 now on the Urgot, and they are starting to eyeball turrets in the middle. Stress not looking good for the Wolves Academy.
It's not, but what's looking good for ROCCAT is Jankos in these knockups every single time. He's getting multiple people. That's going to result in another turret, and he's had a Warmog's armor for a while in this game. He is pretty tanky early on, regardless of whether the fact he went for that Cinder Hulk or not. But honestly, Morsu just doesn't have the damage to deal with people. He also doesn't have the opportunity, is the other factor. Morsu is never getting into the back of these fights easily. He always has to go through a Maokai, always has to go through a Rek'Sai, and he stepped forward onto the turret here. Overpow goes straight onto Visibility as he opened up. Tibbers lands as well. This is exactly what ROCCAT want for the beginning of this fight. And Morsu couldn't even take Vander off the map here. Again, regardless of a good shockwave, there's just too much here, and here comes Jankos with the knockup again. It's kind of the bouncy castle play here with the Lulu ultimate after the Rek'Sai knockup, but ROCCAT are again so far ahead right now that I don't know what Wolves Academy can do here to catch back up.
Yeah, that is a really tough question. Again, we've talked about what happens when the Wolves Academy fall behind. It's not exactly the early game anymore, but nonetheless, they're still in some serious trouble. Morsu stunned up. Chum the Waters comes out, but that's really just not a lot of damage in Morsu. It's a lot fired on him as he tries to back away, courtesy of Woolite. Kairi now looking to retreat back into the safety of his own jungle, but if this continues, it won't be safe for much longer.
Yeah, and we saw that in game 1, that Wolves Academy just could not hold on to any jungle control of their own, and at that point, again, when you're a team that wants to split push, you heard NukeDuck say it before this game. Wolves Academy in NukeDuck's mind are very one-dimensional, and I don't disagree with him. They want to split push. They have to carry from either top or mid with then split pushing into the mid game. And if you got no control over the jungle and no outer towers and nothing to protect ROCCAT from just walking towards you, you cannot split push.
Not to mention when you've got no side wave control to begin with, all they can do is really just push a couple of waves back. You see Morsu doing that on the top side, Visibility, Cosq, and Hybrid in the mid. But you're right, they're letting the pace of the game get dictated to them. And ROCCAT, they're just not letting the pressure go.
This is basically the same game that we just saw about half an hour ago.
Almost the same comp.
Exactly. It's almost the same game through and through, and Wolves Academy just have not made significant enough changes here. And ROCCAT again are pushing in towards Wolves Academy. Morsu is in another lane, just trying to hold on. He has his teleport available this time. Overpower is going to use his to get up to top lane, and if Morsu can't even take an outer tower, look at how healthy that tower is.
And look at how healthy Overpower is. Morsu just trying to ignore the tree. This time he dashes forward, or dashes back rather, as Overpower just clears away the minion wave. Another 2 minutes on this next dragon, but ROCCAT, they're just so strong right now, and you look at that tower score, they've not been able to knock down a single outer, where ROCCAT have been hammering on all the lanes.
At 23 minutes. I mean, usually, even if a game is fairly one-sided, you could assume that a team that are behind will normally have a turret by now, at least.
Well, I'll counter your self-burn with one of my own, because that's usually how my solo queue games go.
Hey, but at that point, that's a team effort. Turrets are a team effort. They're not an individual thing, unlike my Sejuani ults. But Wolves Academy as a team...
It can be if Morsu's continuing to play on this top side.
It can be,
That's the thing. He just hasn't come into his own yet. You said he needs kills. He's only got one. He's got a death and an assist to match it, and he's still just sitting on the Trinity Force Bilgewater.
Morsu needs the rest of Wolves to create the space for him, though. They have to reliably be able to defend while Morsu is going aggressive to split push. That is the be-all, end-all. Because you may get one turret, but if you lose it all 4 people the other side of the map, and Morsu can't TP in time, you are about to lose an inhibitor in this kind of situation, or at least an inhibitor tower. With Dragon coming up as well, that is something that Wolves Academy have to continue to fight. This one isn't the biggest of issues if ROCCAT pick it up. It's only the second one, but you look at ROCCAT's team comp, it is so good at fighting around these Dragon areas that Wolves can't even go anywhere near it.
It's so good at fighting just in general. It's also pretty good at catching if you've got the flashes and the tibbers and the knockups facility. They don't want to give him up at all, and they go deep behind the turret to grab him. Or rather, deep behind where they would have been before. This time, Dragon coming up in about 8 seconds facility. Again, he's really been a non-factor just because they've been able to pick him off 3 times now. Kyrie, he's got to assault his way backwards. The Lantern will be there. He does get the style points for clearing away the Rek'Sai tunnel. But that's only a consolation prize because this Dragon now being 3-manned by ROCCAT, there is no answer from CWA.
The disrespect from ROCCAT saying, hey, we saw you place that ward. We don't even need to sweep it right now. I'm going to hold my sweepers and get rid of some of the rest of your wards. There we go. They're going to clear that out. But there's no way Wolves Academy could have actually contested that Dragon. So, I mean, Kyrie got the ward down, got out alive, kind of worth. They now will have a very rough timer on when ROCCAT did indeed take that. And it does buy the Wolves a little bit of time to get their own jungle.
This is true, but if you're in that situation to begin with where you just have to give up dragons despite having some good vision in the area, something has clearly gone wrong in your early game. 25 minutes is the time on the clock. They're down just over 5,000 gold, I should say. They still have yet to take a turret in this one, and they're scattering to the winds as ROCCAT are climbing deeper into their own jungle. So
we have to keep into perspective the ways that Wolves Academy can equalize and come back into this game. One of them is the fact that their mid and top are pretty far ahead when it comes to CS right now. Orianna is going to scale, but not if she's caught out.
No, indeed. That's going to be a 2-man shockwave, but Kozq, maybe he can get out of there. No, he can't. They threw him a lantern, but he was unable to take the line. 4 members of ROCCAT now. -1 Orianna from Copenhagen Wolves Academy. They're going to have to back off. They may trade an outer for an inner, but like you were saying, Stress, this is just not worth when the pressure is on the bottom side. ROCCAT can keep pushing for inhibitors. Yes, the Fizz can keep going, but they might lose an inhib for sure. They might lose more than that. Hybrid, he's going to get popped. It's Woolite coming up with one. The box is down to try and keep them from retreating. No, you can't take that base gate, but it doesn't matter when you can take the fight. Morsu gonna have to hop away. There are Acid Hunters flying left and right as Woolite tries to push them back. Nuke Duck comes up with another pick on a facility. That has got to be an inhibitor here, Stress. At 26 minutes into this game, ROCCAT are flexing their muscles, and Copenhagen Wolves, they've got no answer.
At this point, it didn't even matter that Morsu got into the fight and landed an ultimate onto multiple people. They just do not have the damage to chunk through the tank line of ROCCAT, and this multiple tank composition is working very well for ROCCAT. Urgot again on Woolite. He's got a 4-1 and 2 scoreline. So many of ROCCAT's players right now have not been killed at all, and this is where it all started. Flash position reverser. Kozq gets a 2-man ult here, but look at the damage it didn't even do. There was just nothing that came from Kozq at that situation.
They need late game scaling to be a factor in this game. You can see on the screen there that they just managed to get another outer turret, but they're giving up so much in return here, Stress.
And here's the re-engage from Overpow. He knows exactly when to hit this Righteous Glory and go in. Facility and Hybrid just had no chance at this point against such a tanky Overpow. Yes, Morsu TP's in. No, there was almost no damage, and Morsu is in trouble again.
He will will have to rely on more than just a playful trickster to get his way out of danger right now as he dives onto Nuke Duck, forcing the wild growth, but that is gonna mean he's getting squirreled for just a second, and Jankos will pick him up. Meanwhile, Copenhagen Wolves Academy, Desperation Baron, it looks like it's gonna be foiled. They pop the Rek'Sai ultimate, they decide to go back in. They don't know where they don't know where this vision ward is or this ward is. There's a Tibbers down, they're gonna pull in Woolite, but the Baron is doing so much damage to them right now, Stress. They've got absolutely nothing left in the tank. Kyrie's going down, and they've served the Baron up on a silver platter to ROCCAT, as well as 2 more members.
That was Wolves Academy admitting defeat in this game, potentially, because they start a Baron as a desperation play. You see the teleport, you hear the Rek'Sai scream, you know ROCCAT are coming for you, and you go back in. It's suicidal at this point. Copenhagen Wolves Academy have kind of lost their head in this game.
They have to be extremely careful from here on out, or they may just lose the game, but it may happen despite it. Baroned up members of ROCCAT are knocking on the front door. They've already blown a hole in the side, and Copenhagen Wolves Academy can do nothing but watch their ship start to go down here. 2 minutes on this next Dragon, 2 inhibitors down. ROCCAT are looking good to keep their spot in Summer. If they take this game, they'll be one closer.
They are looking good right now. This, of course, seems to be a replication perhaps of the Challenger Finals for Wolves Academy, which, again, Wolves Academy have good individual players in some of their roles. And a lot of players, when it comes to the US solo queue, look to Morsu for the top lane when it comes to, you know, a lot of solo individual skill. The problem is when you try and introduce that into a team setting, you have to have the backup on it when it comes to making plays across the map. You can't afford for the rest of the lanes to look to start losing. I mean, yes, Orianna's up in farm, she's 0-2. It's not too bad because you're always going to scale, but 1-5 on Basility, and now Morsu's cut out again.
Yes, he is, but his team is there, but he's already down. Jankos still pushing forward. Basility just doesn't have any damage, and Jankos flashes after him, gets a double kill. That warrior enchant being put to work. They're going to get even more as Nuke Duck picks up a rampage kill onto Hybrid. Kyrie, he's not getting anywhere. That's a triple kill going over to Jankos. The queen of the Xerxai is running wild. And with only CosQ left to go, they're pushing for the base. But what's this? A surrender vote comes in. It's not even 30 minutes. And Copenhagen Wolves Academy admit defeat in game 2.
I mean, the Baron core said it all at that point for the Wolves Academy. They just could not hold on in that game. It was too far gone for ROCCAT. We were expecting maybe the Wolves Academy to look to their top laner, to Morsu, to get them into the game. ROCCAT have done a good job of preventing Morsu from ever really getting into this game.
Absolutely, and I think they really studied their opponents well. They realized that this is a team that's going to want to put, as you said before, pressure on the bottom, on the top, try to split push to win. What were they never allowed to do in the 2 games we've seen so far? It was basically textbook. Shut down the one strategy that the Wolves did have. And ROCCAT, they were able to play their pressure bruiser game and never give anything up.
The other thing you got to look at is Woolite and Vander have decimated Facility and Hybrid in that bottom lane.
Despite maybe going behind for like 5 seconds in lane, we looked away from the top lane in the early swap, and then we looked back, and then all of a sudden the Urgot was up about 20 CS. I mean, it just it turns around so fast for them.
I mean, I'm not one to really do maths very quickly, but looking at the post-game screen, Woolite and Vander had a combined KDA of 23, and over on the Wolves Academy side, they had whatever 3 divided by 12 is. I'm not going to try and do that one.
It's less than 1.
It's less than 1 and far less than 23.
Yeah, I mean, that is... It really tells a huge tale. Facility was just unable to really get the damage out. You could see at the end of the game, he was just immediately popping flash, trying to dash away. On a champion as mobile as Lucian, they never got him rolling. In a lane bully, I mean, it's not always a lane bully these days. There are so many changing options, but he's been preferring this pickup. They haven't really banned any 80 carries away from him, and that just has burned them in... They're trusting this Thresh Lucian lane too much, and against the Urgot, that doesn't even build early damage. They're losing out.
Hasn't worked out. I mean, Flask start from Woolite just to get himself safe through the laning phase was exactly what they needed, and Woolite is looking pretty good. So is Vander here. ROCCAT just as a whole are looking exceptionally comfortable in this series.
Very, very solid. We'll have to see if this continues, if it will go all the way to 3-0 or not. But for now, to break down that game, we're going to send it back to our analysts to do just that.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm going to start by answering Stress's question. What is 3 kills or 3 kills and assists to 12 deaths? It's a 0.25 KDA. Now, let's talk a little bit seriously. ROCCAT, again, super comfort picks. They had a lack of damage in their team composition, and I personally felt if the game went long, there could have been a risk of ROCCAT being unable to win team fights. It didn't happen, but let's take a look at the team compositions and rinse and repeat like you did for game one. Deficio, what do you like and dislike about the two respective teams?
Well, if you look at Copenhagen's Academy and what they've done once again with this red side, which they decided to be on red side, by the way, whenever they had the chance, the first two picks that came in was Thresh Illusion. You're not taking anything away from ROCCAT by doing that because you know Urgot is going to be the pick for Woolite anyway, and clearly Wolves Academy doesn't play it. So you don't really gain any advantage by being on that red side. And then the last pick, the Fizz, which is of course a counter pick to the Maokai. Problem about Fizz is he's so slow at clearing waves and really setting up a split push that with all the engage of a Annie, of an Urgot, Maokai, whatever it is, even a Whimsy from a Lulu, will always force a fight on the rest of the members from Wolves Academy while they can see Fizz standing there poking the minions slowly trying to build up that wave and get the split push going. So it's way too easy for ROCCAT to just read what's about to happen, how much time do we have to react, and because Wolves Academy never forced anything outside of the Fizz, ROCCAT just saved up their cooldowns and said, okay, now we got a flash ready on Urgot, let's just flash on Orianna, kill her instantly, and then they would just use that to always dictate the pace of the game, and Wolves Academy just never really had any answers.
Yeah, I think that just decisiveness from ROCCAT and the lack of decisiveness from Copenhagen Wolves Academy kind of told the story of this game. They had the split push going, they actually had a Fizz that was really, really strong with 40, 50, 60 CS ahead. Easily could have gone for the split push and was stronger than the Maokai. And back then when we played Fizz as well, always pick Fizz into Maokai because at some point you just split push, you outdeal DPS so much compared to the Maokai. And then in this game they just started grouping up and lost team fights consistently.
Yeah, I actually think we've got a replay of one of those lost team fights. It's about 19 minutes into the game. ROCCAT already had built themselves up a lead, but this is just a well-executed fight from ROCCAT.
Well, and also Mosu has no reason to be here with the team. Let's just look at the fighting, we talk about it after. So it's engaging from Overpower, big tank and Maokai. He's where he wants to be. Maokai wants to team fight, Fizz wants to split push. So Mosu's no impact in this fight, and despite a good shockwave from Cosq, it's just not enough damage on an early game Orianna.
There's just no follow-up as well.
No follow-up. Like, your whole composition as well needed more time to scale up before you could really take fights like this. You're doing it straight into an Urgot who's sitting on Brutalize and Manamuni at this point here. You're sitting against a Lulu, which is so strong in the mid game. So you're playing into the hands of ROCCAT. And you're also having, like, you have this, we got a strong split pusher, they got a strong team fighter. Let's not go into team fight then, because the top wave here was open for Wolves Academy to just have that Fizz sitting here, TP and everything, pushing that wave, force the Maokai to sit against you and basically do nothing. Instead, early team fights set you even further behind, and ROCCAT is just honestly on cruise control.
Let's talk about Copenhagen Wolves Academy for a moment, because we did mention they actually don't have a coach with them here, whereas the other teams do. You can actually see the team backstage chatting and trying to break down the game. You know, we're seeing picks and bans, errors, mistakes. We're seeing team-based decisions going awry in game. This is a team that, you know, did very well during the regular season of Challenger, and now since getting to playoffs and losing to Origin, they seem to be losing their way more so than they were earlier in the split.
Yeah, I think that right now they should pull themselves together and be more decisive. I don't know what he did on the phone there, but you should have somebody to talk to here, to cheer you up, to show you the strengths.
I honestly think just for Wolves Academy, they have some very, very good players. It's what we talked about at the start of this match here, how it's very much a solo queue team. 5 guys coming together, don't have a gaming house, don't really seem to have, you know, the whole infrastructure we see from some of the other teams. And whenever they've now faced Origin, who's a team who's obviously very serious, have that gaming house and has prepared a lot of things, ROCCAT is the same here. It looks like when they face teams that has some sort of strategy or answers to this strong individual play, it's very hard for Wolves Academy to do anything, but we still got to give them that credit that player for player, they are very, very good. Like Mosu in that Fizz got a few early kills. So the start of the game where it was just standard lanes, they swapped around, so they countered the swap in top lane to get the Fizz one-on-one. Like, that was great. It's just whenever ROCCAT makes a move, Wolves Academy don't know how to react in time, and that's why they keep falling behind. It was the same versus Origin.
Well, they've got one more chance to keep their hopes alive. We'll see whether or not Copenhagen Wolves have found the magic strategy on their phone and whatever prep they had. Before we get to that game, though, let's take a look at what you guys have been saying over in the Twitter sphere. Earlier today, we asked you which promotion tournament team do you think has the most potential to impact the LCS Summer Split and why? We picked one more tweet that we'd like to talk about. This comes from @Kittil, wrote in, #ROC win for sure. If NukeDuck gets his confidence back, everybody should watch out for ROCCAT. And he's not been playing Assassins like we used to see him on, like his namesake, but his Lulu has been particularly strong in these 2 games.
Yeah, it's been very, very good. He's done everything he needed to. Good poke coming in, and of course the whole team fighting you can do when you have these beefy tanks, like even an ROCCAT, and then Lulu just buffing them up. So I like the comp they're running, and they can keep doing it, because it looks like that's not the kind of style that Wolves Academy wants to play, and that's working really well.
Yeah, I think it was not too flashy, but he was consistently dealing DPS, was taking people up, was at the right position at the right time. And exactly that's what you want from a Lulu. Just because it's not insta-killing people doesn't mean that he doesn't do a great job. I think he played really well this series.
Well, definitely showing out. ROCCAT 1 game away from being back in the LCS. Thank you so much to everybody at home for writing in. Remember, we are always listening over at LOL Esports. If you need to talk, always include that #LCS so we on the desk can actually read what you have to say. For now, we do need to head back to another break, but when we return, we'll see whether the ROCCAT is out of the bag or if the Wolves refuse to be tamed.
Or give it to someone special. Don't talk, please.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh, hyperconnect position reverser, but all of a sudden, there is a giant Poro rider there, ignoring Vander as Hybrid tries to tank up the damage that picks up the kill. NukeDuck on the right. There's the knock-up out to the flash, and NukeDuck, they're going to even the odds here. Hybrid trying to stay alive, but he'll go down.
That's TP, that's TP.
Run away from tower, run here.
Yeah, we can still fight this. I have ulti, I have ulti.
Focus freeze, I think. We killed them all, guys.
Tower. Urgot tower.
Lulu Monster.
Yanko still pushing forward. Facility just doesn't have any damage, and Yanko's flashes after him. Gets a double kill. That Warrior Enchant being put to work. It's not even 30 minutes, and Copenhagen Wolves Academy admit defeat in Game 2.